This is episode 3 of the new season of the 5 Yard Pass podcast with me, Sudi, and this is Shyam. Today, we'll be going through the chaotic weekend. So, the highest scoring weekend in Premier League history with, was it 44 goals? I can't, yeah, 44. I was going to say 44 goals. I don't know how many against, but that's ridiculous. 44 goals scored on the weekend. Um, man, firstly, as always, how are you, Shyam?
Yeah, good. Yeah, very exciting weekend of football. Some very high-scoring games.
Yeah.
We were worried for a while. You know, it comes in swings and roundabouts that sometimes the league's
Yeah.
low scoring, but at the moment it's high scoring. Let's just enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the kind of unknown factors of like the Leeds and the Leicesters were now free scoring for fun and all that as poured into. So let's just get straight into it. So for me, this was kind of almost as exciting as a round can get, with City playing starting the season, United starting the season, Everton Everton playing as if they want to win the league, in my opinion. So let's start, I guess, with the big one, Liverpool-Chelsea. I thought Liverpool looked scary good with Thiago in the second half, even though they did have 10 men, Chelsea. But Thiago you can tell he just brings another dimension. And I think he played much better than we both thought he would play. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it helped that they're a man down, but at the same time, I mean, you got to applaud a guy who sets records in his first appearance in the Premier League. I think it was probably the most passes in a 45-minute period by anyone.
Yeah,
It
was something like that. Yeah, I mean that's ridiculous. And I guess for Chelsea, the defense is just with Kepa behind them. They just signed Mendy to replace Kepa, but I mean,
they've done the signing of the French keeper.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's gone through. Is this? Hold on, let's have a look.
Kepa just looks so bereft of confidence. There was two things in the first. There was one incident in the first half where the ball sort of rolled along the box and he sort of jogged out to the corner flag a bit. And all of a sudden, Mane was there. And then the send off Christensen's behavior in tackling of Mane was triggered by Kepa sort of half coming out, half committing to the ball. Christensen kind of panicked because of where Kepa was, and that's created that red card as well. And then the second goal as well. I mean, that sort of thing happens, but the reality is when you add those three things and all the other things that he's done, he just looks short of confidence. Just doesn't look up to the mark, you know.
Absolutely. In my opinion, I think it's maybe the biggest trickery in football transfers. One of the biggest trickeries in football transfers ever. It's actually, I mean, I don't think he gets into half of the championship sides, in my opinion. Who looks at him? It's the same as a kind of a Phil Jones. Like he wouldn't, like Phil Jones himself is a Kepa type. Like you wouldn't even take him in the championship, man. If you're in the league below.
I think he was by far the worst keeper in the league last season in terms of save ratios, in terms of just confidence with the defense, that sort of thing.
Now here's a stat for you. Kepa alone in the last 3 years has conceded 9% of Chelsea's Premier League goals ever.
Wow. Okay. So 30 years of the Premier League. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, but in the last 3, so it's been like 2 and a bit seasons. So in two games and 2 seasons and 2 games, he's conceded 9% of Chelsea's goals. Is it goals? I got to check that out. Is it goals ever, which would be insane, or is it Premier League goals? Either way. It's just not a stat that you want. So
he's not conceding. Like last season, it was pretty poor. The season before that, it wasn't a large number. It's more the confidence. And if centre backs can't play the way they want to, knowing that if they make a mistake, the other team's going to deal with it. It's the numbers aren't great, but it magnifies at that level because. Chelsea is a top team. If you can nick a goal against them, changes the way they play. They have to score 2. They can't control the game so much. So
that just chain reaction
ripples through the team. Goalkeeping is such an underrated part of all successful teams.
Okay, so just moving on, we'll just kind of brush through these teams. I wish I didn't have to, but so Villa beat Sheffield 1-0. I thought that was a good win for Villa, good way to start this season. Leicester beating Burnley 4-2. Surprisingly, Jamie Vardy know the score sheet, but again, unsurprising. Leicester's a free scoring side. So we can touch on Wolves a bit, Wolves and Man City, just to kind of open that conversation up a bit before we get into the better games, the more discussable games of the round. So Wolves, Man City, they started off their league run, um, I think, quite well. Yeah, like kind of a very, exactly as you predicted. I thought it'd be a tight game. You said it'll be a hammering, and it's more of a hammering.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
goal for Wolves was a consolation, if I remember correctly. I think it was
yeah.
2-0 and they scored.
No, it was 2-0 they scored, and then De Bruyne put a
They got one
third
at
one
the
in.
very, very end, yeah.
I
But
forget
just,
who
just the way
scored now.
City do
Jesus,
start,
sorry.
City do start leagues quite well. They
Mm,
come out really well drilled and well trained. And Foden
yeah,
played today, so maybe he's Silva's replacement. Maybe they already had him all along. He'll get more game time without Silva around.
yeah.
Quality player. Had the issues with England, obviously, but Guardiola won't care. It means he plays more for City,
I think.
maybe he
Sorry,
was
go on.
root for that all along, just to replace Silva.
I think I think it's pretty impressive, man, that they finished the season 3 weeks ago. Most teams had about 7 weeks rest. City's had 3 weeks rest, and you compare that to United, who couldn't catch a breath. Like we'll get that in a second, but they looked like they had a good 2 months rest. It's quite impressive, man.
Yeah, definitely. And it 3-1 flattered Wolves, if anything. City could have won that game
Yeah,
by more. They were very much in
yeah.
control of the game and played.
Just kind of looking through the stats here. I'm not much of a stat man person, but just to kind of highlight like the dominance, man. 9 shots to one, 66-34 possession. City had about 700 passes to Wolves 350.
700 passes.
There's 692 passes in the game.
Wow.
86%
Normally you're
accuracy.
looking at about 400 is sort of
Yeah,
a number. So that 692 is incredible. Yeah.
yeah. So just complete domination, in my opinion. And you are right. Flattered the
Wolves, yeah.
Flattered Wolves. Yeah. So, but it was good to see like Ake and Hernandez both started. New signings. Phil Foden, in my opinion, is like a new signing. And if Stones played okay, and if he can, he could be a type of new signing, like the way Tevez was, that 2012 season, or anyone who comes back with a kind of renewed purpose. So yeah, look, I thought it was unsurprising, really, very much unsurprising. Okay, Everton. I mean, talk about a kind of reformation of a team, man. They are
Well,
just
Hamas scored,
City is
didn't
taking over.
he's done really
Let's,
well. Yeah, and Everton bought a lot of players last year. They spent over 100
mhm.
million last season, and
When the new owners came
it
in,
just
yeah.
click. They just dropped soft points here and there, and maybe those
Mm,
players just needed a bit of time to get used to England. Maybe just
mm,
Ancelotti coming in just with a bit of man management, that sort of thing. Something has
yeah,
really clicked. Everyone was expecting it a year ago, but it's happening now. And
yeah,
yeah, Rodriguez, I've not watched an awful lot of him, but I've not seen him with that sort of hunger that he seems to have. He seems to want to prove a point,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
doing it pretty emphatically. Yeah.
yeah. And it's just a lift you get when you get this. I mean, how many leagues has Ancelotti won? I couldn't keep track. But he's won it just generally speaking with Chelsea. Didn't win with Bayern Munich. He won the Champions League with Madrid, with Milan. Won the league with Milan as well. Did he win the league with Madrid? I can't remember. But his pedigree is undeniable. And as a player, he's in that famous your favorite team of all time. You've said it many times. Arrigo Sacchi's Milan.
Yeah.
Um, it was in the middle of the park, right? It was He was in the
Yeah,
middle of the
he
park
was
with
a no nonsense midfielder type. No, not like a
who's
cultured midfielder type is probably a better
yeah.
word.
Who was he next to? Who was he next to in that midfield? Ruud Gullit, was it?
Yeah, Ruud Gullit. Yeah.
Ruud Gullit, yeah, yeah. So, oh yeah, I mean, in my opinion, they have the pedigree
Not
to
Ruud Gullit,
pull
Rijkaard. I think it was
Rijkaard. Sorry,
Rijkaard. Sorry.
Rijkaard. Sorry.
Both classy and athletic Dutch players.
Yeah, the both classy athletic Dutch players with dreadlocks. Um, in my opinion, they have the pedigree to make certain kind of transfer surprises, man. Like if you look at a guy who's deciding, should I go and try and push for a first team place at Man City, or do I go to Everton and yeah, I'll play every week, but I'll be playing for one of the greatest managers of all time. So they could pull
Everton
off a
have
few
pedigree as
trans.
well. They've won 9 league titles. They're not chumps. They've just been
Yeah, they would have won.
probably in our lifetime. They've been quite badly mismanaged. They
Yeah,
won the league in '85, the year Liverpool had the Heysel disaster, got kicked England teams out of Europe for 5 years. Everton won the league that year. And so they lost their spot in the Champions League because of what happened with Liverpool in Heysel at the Champions League final.
Yeah. And Liverpool
they never
being
really recovered from that in terms of getting back up to where they belong.
Yeah. I think Liverpool winning, Liverpool being the best team in the world in the 70s and 80s probably kind of shadowed them a little bit. The way you'd never really think of Arsenal being big timers in the 90s and 2000s when they were the second best team around to United, but you'll never quite remember them. You'll always be kind of overshadowed by how good United was. Last two games to cover. Well, we'll kind of brush over. Arsenal's done well. 2-1 West Ham scored in the last minute.
I thought that flattered them, to be honest. I thought West Ham upset them a bit, but they got the win, so well done to them.
Showing a bit of character, man. Arsenal, buying into the big time, buying into that Arteta project.
Yeah.
He's sat at the feet of Guardiola, at the lotus feet of Guardiola. Now he's ready to shine.
Guardiola guy.
Yeah. Okay, so the kind of, you want to talk about Leeds. I thought that at the minute, Leeds is such an unpredictable force with many holes. So could you care to explain what you think is going on at Leeds at the minute?
Leeds, I think Leeds are just having a go. I think that there's been just this release of energy. They feel that they're back where they belong, back in the Premier League, and they're just having a good old-fashioned go at it. And I think that the manager is well trained. It's funny because Bielsa's players are normally incredibly well trained and incredibly well synchronized in terms of how they play. They tend to play sort of 4-4-1-1 without the ball, and then they spring into a 3-3-1-3 type formation. The deeper midfielder pulls back, and then the fullbacks and the wingers just charge forward. And they're really having a go, and they're not afraid to concede. They should have won that one 4-1. They conceded a couple of soft ones. So they and even against Liverpool, it was 2 set pieces and 2 penalties that they conceded against them. So they're gonna have to do some work at the back. But if you can get 7 goals in 2 games in the Premier League, and they're known for scoring, so up front they're fine. They're gonna have to fix a couple of things at the back just to make sure they're safe, because there might come a time where the goals dry up, and you need to make sure the back's fine. But they're just having a tremendous go. They're playing with a lot of energy. They're just backing themselves in. I'm really. It was the most that game. Plus, funnily enough, just watching Liverpool, that first goal Liverpool scored, like the front three were passing it around like it was tiki-taka, like something about Alcantara just suddenly. Because a lot of Liverpool's goals have been the midfield three, someone banging it past the defence, and then the 3 of them run in, or Fabinho comes deep and knocks it through for someone to run on. They started looking a lot like a Man City, Barcelona, Bayern Munich type side with Alcantara there.
Yeah, man, scary.
I don't think that Alcantara's got it in him to play a full season. He's historically one of those players he plays 50, 60, 65% of the games. Did like sort of Paul Scholes or Xavi when they were older, and he's 29 now, so he's in terms of fitness, he's not going to get fitter. I have a feeling that against certain oppositions, he will come in and he will play that way, and it will allow them to dictate. And I have a feeling it's going to be games where they want heaps of possession, or they know that teams are going to defend deep, because he came on in the second half. Chelsea's Christensen got sent off just before half time. So Klopp knew that Chelsea were going to just sit deep. Okay, I'll get Thiago on. I feel like he's going to be that man for that game. So they'll
unlock something.
Yeah, because what happens now is when teams play a low block, so say, for example, Chelsea play a low block, Liverpool decide, okay, we're not going to swarm them. We're just going to take half a step back, try and milk them forward a bit to create a little bit of space and find the right moment to punch through and make that hit. So Alcantara is a perfect player to pick and spot that pass. In
many ways, what Bruno's brought into United for this first kind of 20, 25 games he's played, he's been able to I guess United just don't have that quality. Well, they kind of do and they don't. I guess the differential between like Rashford and James is just so far away, but Liverpool just have everyone just kind of in the same. And when you bring someone as intelligent as Thiago, again, played on Guardiola, Ancelotti and Flick as well. You have that intelligence in a player it doesn't matter
He's
who he plays
smart.
with.
He doesn't mind taking a risk. He's the guy
Coming
where
out of La
you get a
Masia.
whole bunch of guys lining up to play at the park. You pick him first. He's that
Yeah.
type of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about him, and like you linked it to Fernandez, and I know it's only 45 minutes with Thiago, but it's almost you get that thought comes: is it a transformative signing like Fernandez was in terms of the way that team can play? I don't think it will be because you don't think he'll play as much as Bruno, but when they want to play that way,
it's a good point. I didn't know that he's the kind of, let's say, plays 70% of the season in terms of minutes.
He has injury.
Let's put any injury issues away. Just on the point that let's say he does play 60-70% of the games, that's going to be lesser considering they're playing the Klopp style of football, which probably the best style in the world at the moment, if not the second best. Is he going to play even 70% of the games? I wonder. But is he going to be? But when he does come on, I guarantee he'll be efficient. He'll know exactly what he has to do, and he will do it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Sorry, did you want to say something?
Spain, you can play football. Like,
say again.
If you can play midfield for Spain, you can play football.
Yeah, in this generation, fuck yeah.
I saw a video of him just playing against Germany. It was some of the stuff
effortless.
Effortless, yeah.
Yeah. Incredible, like. Just sorry, before we go on, incredible. He reminds me of like a midfield, like if Neymar was a midfielder, the way he moves, that kind of lateral movement, like he, it doesn't matter which way he's going. He's got this kind of trademark move where he cuts back with his the outside of his foot to change direction, and it's just poetry, man. Like the guy knows exactly where everyone is, at all times. You see a lot of players as they're coming to get the ball as a midfielder, you kind of check your blind spot, and he's probably checked it quicker than most players would. If you kind of noticed, his awareness is unbelievable. Anyway, I don't want to.
Let's. We're going to invoke Mahabharat here for all the Indian viewers, but they used to talk about in the Vedic scriptures the great warriors who were sort of archers, and they shot you would never see him pick up the bow. You'd never see him take the shot. They would move so quickly and effortlessly.
Oh right. It's also in a lot of the rings.
It's a bit like that. Like it's so quick to the little things that he does. Yeah. Okay,
so the horror show of the weekend, I feel, is the biggest news. I'm not coming from a United fan. I think genuinely was Palace not just beating United, absolutely dominating them. In my very humble opinion, it was kind of sad to see. So Zaha scoring 2 quite late. Andros Townsend in the first one. Donny van Beek kind of in the middle of the second and the third goal for Palace. Where do we start, man? I mean, first things first, let's look at the mistakes. The first goal coming across the back, Lindelof and Shaw were caught watching. Then Wilfried Zaha gets that penalty. Was it a penalty? It doesn't look like it was a penalty to me. It kind of looked like it came across Lindelof's shoulder.
It looked to me like ball to hand. And then it was incredibly frustrating when De Gea makes the save and then they pull it back as well. I don't like saying that someone was conspiring with them, but you get that feeling.
Yeah, no, but rules are rules. And then Zaha getting that goal in the end. Look, there's a lot going on for United. You can kind of go on about the match for me, but what I wanted to talk about was what's going on, like kind of the narrative going on, and I'll see if you agree with it, but there's something, and I've said this over text to you for years now, there's something systemically wrong with the way the club is, and it's transpired and manifested as inability to do transfers. Go.
Yeah, I heard that. I saw last night the Patrice Evra video, and that was one of the things he was saying about the
I haven't seen it yet.
Doing transfers, and someone from another club calls Patrice Evra and says, "Can you get this guy from United who's doing the transfers to return my calls?" You know, that sort of thing. Like, United they just get linked to everybody. No one gets signed. Sometimes. Like, they either don't seem to want to pay overs, and sometimes you have to pay overs to get players in. City, when they first bought, they bought guys like Adebayo and Robinho, and they paid overs for those guys. Even Tevez, they paid overs compared to what United were prepared to pay. To get your team back up to that level and to expand and be above your station, you sometimes have to pay overs. Leeds United did it. They got shot in the foot, so I get it. But United just don't seem to be willing to take those risks. And it's almost the perception is almost they want to keep fans stimulated by linking them to everybody, and then we sign decent players, good enough to get us sort of somewhere between 3rd and 6th in the league, and we end up finishing half the time in the Champions League spots and half the time outside the Champions League spots. And the club will invest a lot of money when we finished outside last season. Like, the club went and spent money last summer. They spent 50 on Bruno, 50 on Bissaka, 80 on Maguire, 15 on James. That's a fair whack of money. That's almost £200 million. Well, why are you spending that? Why are you just waiting to not qualify and then spend £200 million? And then you don't spend anything, and then you get knocked out, and then you have to go and spend another £200 million to get back in. It's very irregular. There's been constant changes in transfer strategy as well around the club. It's just completely fallen apart.
But I think you're not seeing the pattern here is that every time we've not, well, I say we, this is not a United podcast, this is a football podcast, but every time United have not made the Champions League, we've gone and spent, to me, and every time we've made the Champions League, we've not gone and spent the players like Mourinho, Van Gaal. They never afforded the players, the transfer and the time. Like, basically what I'm saying is I don't think they have any interest I don't think you'll see United win a league title for 10, 15 years because I don't think there's a need for it.
They won't win the league unless lightning strikes or pigs fly.
Unless lightning strikes. There's always a possibility. If Leicester won, anyone can win kind of thing. But I don't think United will ever win again. And I think that's something fans have to come and accept. Like, it's not even the fact that we won't be the best club, the best team. It won't happen again because I don't think the owners are interested in winning. And I think they have a man at the helm in Ed Woodward who is a banker. He's not a football man. Do you know? I remember, I was listening to another YouTuber talk about this, but I do remember this. Keane and JP Magnus having the standoff. JP Magnus being the last owner, who lives down the road actually from here, but he refused to pay Roy Keane $50 million because he didn't want to break his contract. He didn't want to break the wage structure. And you know when this was? This was in the June of the year they won the treble. Roy Keane was arguably the best player in the world behind Zinedine Zidane, but he just won winning the Champions League probably makes you want even better just in that moment.
Just play that game.
He wouldn't get the money.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even get that money. And you have these players like Mason Greenwood's on an 80 or 90 grand at the minute. He just got and he'll get a new contract as well. I thought
the contract took him up to 80, 90, but like Jones is on 6 digits. Henderson's on 6 digits. Sanchez was on...
Henderson on 6 digits. For me...
Lingard, Smalling, Rojo, like all these guys are not playing.
And what's the next contract going to be? And what's the next contract going to be if they decide to say, if they make these ridiculous decisions? Oh, it is. And everything...
His wage was dictated by Sanchez's wage. You know?
Alexis Sanchez. Sorry, how'd you say Sancho? Yeah, Sanchez's wage, who was for 500 grand. He's like, well, that motherfucker's getting 500. What am I doing? You know? And that's part of the problem. The second part of the problem is, as Ever said, I did watch a bit of it. I'd be lying, but I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't have time. But he mentioned something about there are definitely entities outside of the club that are making decisions for the club. I mean that in agents. I mean that in intermediaries. I mean that in like the leakage of the press. There's just like every day. Today was Emiliano Sarr. What's his name? The guy who plays for Watford. He's a good winger, actually. He's quite good. I think his name's Emiliano Sarr. Ismail Sarr. He plays for Watford. Great player. But why is he being linked?
Clubs make inquiries all the time. If you look at Steven Gerrard, for instance, Chelsea was trying to get him every summer, and the only summer we found out about it was the summer where he was this close to going.
2005, yeah.
Champions League, right? And it was the only time we found. But they were making bids every summer to try and get him. Ferguson was trying to get Gerrard as well, in whatever way he could. But it only came out when it was really, really close. But United suddenly they look in the direction of one player, it becomes a new story, you know? It's incredible leakage out of the club. And it doesn't help because then other clubs who have the players dig their heels in and jack up the price.
And I will say this, and I don't just blame United. I don't blame fan channels, but they are part of the problem. And as a United fan, I've been sucked into watching fan channels, and they do this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say any names because I think they do an incredible job for pre-match stuff. As much as we love doing this, and we're nowhere near as big as them, but they use this as fodder, and then they complain about it. Yet they do this. They do a separate video about Sarr being linked. There's one of Sarr being linked on my homepage right now. It's part of the cycle, and you can't feed into the cycle and then complain about the cycle.
Yeah.
Like that sort of shit, that sort of leakage has to stop. Man, the way as bad as Chelsea played on Saturday,
It's
their
not
transfer
deliberately
business.
done. It's unwittingly done, but it needs to be
Yeah,
controlled.
in the same way you give Trump that press, that negative press, but it's still press. As much as Chelsea played shit on the weekend, the way they did transfer business, I have never seen anything like it since probably 2003 when they just went. And a similar one was 2009 when Madrid bought Benzema, Kaká, and Ronaldo in the same window. Bam, bam, bam. I remember it was all of a sudden. Ronaldo was a bit of a saga, given kind of like a Kai Havertz, but just
Ronaldo
bang,
was
bang.
supposed to leave a year ago, and he only
Yeah, leave
stayed to
for
do back to back. So
yeah,
that was the only thing Ferguson could offer him. So he offered him that.
yeah,
So all the players at the club said we knew he was going
yeah,
in '09.
yeah,
In a way, they knew he was leaving in '09. But
yeah,
Benzema was, unknown player. Even Kaká, who was as big a star as Ronaldo at the time, was very much under wraps.
yeah. There's just so much going on, and just coming to the game now, I guess it just manifested all that negativity, in my opinion. That wasn't a player to be found, man. Why did he start? I wonder why he didn't start Wan-Bissaka. Was it a coronavirus thing? And if it was, why did he start Paul Pogba? Why
You
wasn't
think
Donny van Beek
Bissaka would
starting?
have been perfect for Palace, a game with wingers who love to run at defenders one on one? You'd think Bissaka would be the guy.
Well, Bissaka is the play for every game, man.
Yeah.
Why wasn't Donny van Beek starting? I wonder. He came on. He was probably the best. He actually did play very well, in my opinion. The front three were flat, absolutely flat.
Pogba
Why
was
wasn't
not there. I don't know where he was, but he wasn't there.
you give out to Gareth Southgate, and then you don't play Greenwood to start. But whereas Pep goes, fuck it, I want to win. I want to win the game. I'm going to start Foden anyway. Screw why he didn't England. I don't know. It's just kind of very distressing to see that these poor decisions are being made. And now the question I wanted to ask after that kind of bit of ranting: do you think Ollie is tactically, managerially good enough not to win a title? Do you think full stop is good enough?
I think last season he did as much as he could with what he had. Um, that was sort of the upper limit of what he could do with those players. I feel that Ollie is a bit, because he doesn't quite have the resources, can't flex his tactical stuff as well as he would like. He's kind of like he's not got the armory to show everything that he's got. I think tactically, you look at his first full season last year, I think that he got it right more often than not. You can't expect anyone to get it right 100% of the time. I think he got it right enough. I think the biggest problem that he had was just not having enough resources. He would seem to drop players because they were fatigued or make late substitutions because he couldn't back guys on the bench. I think the issue is more personnel than Ollie. I think the personnel is a bigger issue than him.
Do you think so? I get this is a very kind of childish example, but do you think if he gets a Man City team, he goes to Man City today, do you think he wins the league or comes close?
Yeah, I think he would.
Okay, so yeah, see, I'm of that same opinion where I don't think. I'm not saying it doesn't take much tactics. Like obviously, I couldn't manage United. I don't have any knowledge. I'm just saying I think it takes a lot less tactics than people think to manage a Premier League team, to manage a winning team. It's like I think for example, Madrid, for example, you're saying manage themselves when Ronaldo was there. Liverpool would do a lot of that as well, where they have the likes of Van Dijk doing a lot more of the managing in a game situation than maybe Klopp would. So you are right. You definitely have kind of the right point.
People, and even anyone who works in an office, like I work in an office, I have certain skills, not Liam Neeson type skills, but skills that are born by many years of experience in the banking industry. And I can flex those whenever, but my main problem is working with people.
Yeah.
Everybody's problem is just working with other people. Yours is probably like you work in the hospital systems, you got people who work in the hospital system, and you got sick patients you got to deal with. The problem is so much of it in any walk of life is just dealing with people. And Ferguson was such an incredible man manager. Klopp seems to be a really incredible man manager. Guardiola, not so much. There are people who don't like him, but I think he's got enough people around him that can help manage people. And that's why Company leaving was a big deal, because he seemed to manage people as well.
He was a conduit for Guardiola.
Yeah.
In many ways,
and they talk about it in terms of leadership. I don't think it's so much leadership, because I think any player at that level wants it that bad. I had a friend who played semi-pro here in Perth, and he was sort of playing under 18s, and he got into the reserves, and reserves is when it started being semi-pro. And he remembers his first game, they drew 1-1, and he came off the field, and he was all right. We drew 1-1, it's not too bad. He saw guys in the dressing room getting their heads and banging their heads against the wall because they were so frustrated they didn't win. And the coach pulled him aside and he says, if you don't feel like that next time, you shouldn't be here. Like, the coach sort of had not a stern word, but a quiet word with him. Like, if you play at that level, your mentality is already top 1% in the world. How many people in the world play football? How many people play in the Premier League? Like, you have to have that mentality to play there. When they say players don't try hard enough, maybe they're distracted by things, but to get to that level, you have to be hungry. So the problem is managing people, getting people in line, and all of that sort of thing. And I think Ollie's seems to be pretty good at that. He's not. He seems to be a pretty good man manager. He seems to be a pretty good tactician. We need to be careful about comparing Ollie as he is now to Ferguson at his peak, because he's not going to be at that level. But is he moving slowly in the right direction? I think he's hindered more than anything by the personnel than
fair assessment.
Any lack of man management or tactical ability.
Yeah, I think we can kind of leave it there, man. And hit the head of the nail with the hammer, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? You said it really well. As I said, I'm not trying to be too biased and talk too much about United, but that's been the headlines for a few days, and
it's been the headline. It was a shit show. Like, it was horrible. Yeah, you can lose 3-1, no problem, but there's losing 3-1, and then there's losing 3-1, and it was pretty poor. Unacceptable.
On that note, thanks for watching, everyone. Shyam, you as usual broke it down beautifully, coming in with the corporate world stuff today. Thanks for watching, everyone. We are the 5-Year Pass. My name is Suvi. This is Shyam. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. And you know what? Keep football simple, and as always,
keep passing.